Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everyone? We are live with the Video Production Bootcamp office hours. Sam, Will, and I are here again. It's February 23rd, and we're going to be answering your questions that you have for us coming from the Video Production Bootcamp, whether you submitted them to the form, which I'm going to actually link to in the description of the YouTube video on the YouTube page, or you can just live chat us your questions and we'll be answering them as we go. So let me just make sure that we are live, which it looks like we are. Cool. Awesome.
Let's try to put it up there, yeah.
And I see we got a few viewers, or we got Imran is here. If it's not even 10 o'clock yet, so we got a minute till, oh, we got 2 people watching. What's up? What's up? When you guys get here, let us know.
It's me.
Oh, that's you. Dang. It's just you and me watching.
Yeah.
Okay, no. We got 6 people here. Okay, so if you're here, we want to know who is here. So please chat in the chat box. Say hello. Tell us where you are coming from. And if you have questions, please let us know. Hello, Vincent. Hello, Imran. And while we're kind of waiting for people, Will and Sam, you've been working on some projects. You went up to Ghirardelli for a project, and also Will, you edited and worked on a music video that just launched yesterday, and it already has 750,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah,
so
it also reached number 4 on the top iTunes music video, I think, this morning.
Nice. So can you kind of just talk about that project and what went down?
Yeah, basically it's a project. It's a music video that was done for Kendall Kay, who's actually a girl on Dance Moms. I don't know if you've ever heard of that show, but we got connected through a cinematographer friend of ours, and she needed a production company to sort of like help do it. And so we kind of fell into it more or not, and they checked out all our stuff, and they were like super stoked on it. So our company ran it as through our production company, and Megan, who was the cinematographer, shot it and directed it. I produced it, and then ended up editing it as well. And then they just released it on her channel. I mean, it's a great video, and like if you get a chance, go check it out. It's on Kendall Vertes' YouTube channel. But it's the views are definitely playing off the fact that she's already kind of a star. So there's like, I think it's a great video, and like I think it wouldn't necessarily go viral if she wasn't, you know, popular already, I think.
Yeah, you're not giving yourself enough credit. It's a pretty cool video.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. Like we shot it all in like a day. The only bummer part was like there's a white psych stage that we painted the crap out of, and it took almost 2 days to repaint it, and that was terrible. But other than that, it's great.
Yeah. Well, I linked up to that music video in the chat for people to check out.
Cool.
So let's just get started. We got 13 people here. Again, if you want to introduce yourself, say what's up in the chat. We're going to be bouncing back and forth between those questions and the questions that we got from before. So let's just quickly go through a few questions that we've gotten from the forum. So and I'm just gonna, blaze through these. So the first question was, I noticed that many of your lenses have some kind of filter, daylight, UV, etc., etc. In my photography, I don't use them unless I am in really harsh environment, dust, hard rain, etc., because the filter's glass is not as good as the lens. Basically, it seems like they're asking, is it important to use these filters for video because video is lower resolution? Will it soften the images or affect the images, or is it just for protection? Is it good for protection?
I mean, there's filters that are very high end that they do cost quite a bit of money, but they don't take away from your image necessarily. And the UV ones are purely for protection for the most part. But some of the lower end ones can affect your image. It's kind of hard to say whether or not that's I personally don't use them when I'm shooting, at least the UV filters. I will say for video, a lot of times I'm using polarizer filters or using neutral density filters. Those are ways of polarizer basically lets you cut reflections and also neutral densities, and polarizers reduce the amount of light coming in. And so you're able to have some more control of what you want your settings to be without having to bring your shutter speed up or bring your f-stop up. You can use a neutral density filter, keep your f-stop really low, keep your shutter speed where you want it to be. And so I definitely think it's important at that. That being said, like I've used very cheap filters and I've used really high-end filters, and to most people's eye, I don't think you're going to notice. Sometimes maybe if you have sun coming, straight at your lens, you might be able to notice the difference. But
I think like at the end of the day, though, it's unless you have a complete control of your environment and you're completely confident with your camera and what's going on, it's pretty important to have some sort of protection, because if you scratch your lens, that's you're done for at that point. So
absolutely. But I also think that's kind of knowing, like if you're traveling around and stuff, I always have something in front of my lens to protect it, because if I'm on a job and something happened to that lens, I can't do my job at that point.
Right.
At the same time, if I'm in a controlled situation and I have a crew around me and I know that it's on a tripod and it's safe, like I'll take off the filters at that point just to try and get the most out of that lens. But it's those filters can add up. They can get very expensive. So I would say you don't have to buy a filter for each size lens you have. You can get step down rings, and basically have a large filter and get smaller rings to put onto smaller threads. So
cool. So it sounds like there's some types of filters that actually have a purpose in changing and affecting the look. But in terms of a UV or a filter that protects, the higher quality ones don't affect the image at all. And for traveling around and kind of event videography or just carrying around, it's probably a good idea to have one, because it really doesn't affect that much.
Yeah, absolutely. And B&W and then also Tiffin, make great filters. I think the B&Ws are typically on the more expensive side of things, and the Tiffins are a little bit more middle range. But if you're going for that like cheapest one you can find, obviously you pay for what you get, or you get what you pay for. So
cool. Got it. So the next question is the key light always to the subject's left, the camera's right in an interview setup? If yes, are there exceptions, and why?
No, I mean it's kind of like the distinguishing, like a key light is just the main light source. So it could be anywhere. I mean, really. I mean, I think it just kind of depends on your style and what you're doing. But key light is just the main light, and then the fill light is filling in wherever, and those don't need to be. I mean, they could be up above, they could be left, they could be right, side to side.
Yeah, right. So go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, just right now we have a big window off to our right now, and so if you wanted to create a key light, it make kind of most sense to utilize that light. At the same time, if you had a big enough light, you could bring it on the left side and make this our fill light, but it's always hard to compete with the sun, so you might as well just use that light. I'm actually just thinking now that I'm in the light and Will's in the shade, so it's kind of it's a little extreme right now, but.
Well, I think that's that's just a good clarification of the definition of the key light. And maybe from our course, since we were doing the interview setup and we had the key light on the one side, people might have thought, well, every time that's where the key light's supposed to go. But as cinematographers, we can move that around.
I mean, I do think in interviews, my personal styles, I tend to put the key light on the side that the interviewee is facing, so that the face is more evenly lit. But that's just from a basic interview. If the interview is more menacing and darker, I may move it more to a 45-degree angle to help make some contrast in the light. So it just depends on what you're doing, I think is really.
I think what's really important there is set where your interviewee or where your person's going to be looking, and then put a light to the side and see what it looks like, and taking the time to try it on that side, so see how it looks and what appeals to you most. Because at some point you don't want your interviewee staring straight into a light. At the same time, you don't want to look really dark and menacing. every
Yeah.
time. So. Yeah.
Cool. We just got a quick question that I want to follow up right now because I think it has to do with lighting. And don't worry, people who chatted questions, we will get to your questions. But Neil just joined and he asked about why do people always forget about the backlight? And I think that's something pretty interesting. I think personally, I think some people just don't have 3 lights. So they might have 2 lights and there's a lot of kits that you can buy that just have 2 lights. But is there any other reason why you think people just don't do it? Laziness?
No,
I think people just don't know about it, to be honest. Like I think it's just not a learned thing. Like it's just, I mean, I think it's one of those things that's very, very subtle, but adds so much to something. So it's kind of hard to pick out.
It's also, I mean, this is differing opinions. I personally think that a backlight makes it look more lit. And so I don't like backlights.
I love the backlights.
Okay,
Like,
that's
I like
really
backlights.
interesting.
Yeah, because I like the more natural thing. You don't always have a light behind you that's like breaking you out of the background. And I understand the purpose of it.
Yeah.
But I think especially nowadays, people are going for this more naturalist look, and you don't always have that.
You
Again,
get a natural backlight. You can diffuse it.
you
I mean,
can have
need to,
natural light.
separate the
Absolutely,
background somehow.
absolutely. But when you have a perfect 3-point lighting every time, you have a set lighting style. And the second, if you're going to lose a light, you're not going to lose your key light. You're going to lose, either your fill or your backlight. And I think also, to your point, a lot of people just don't have 3 lights, and it's more important to have your subject lit than having something behind them. So, yeah.
Cool. I think that answered. I just want to give a shout out to the people who are watching that I've seen chat. Neil, Akash, Himanshu, Mohammed, Fed4561. Hello, Quantum Courses, Diego, Blender Made Easy, Lambi Poo, Imran. Thank you so much for being here. So there's a couple questions I can run through really quickly. One is actually someone asked if we have any plans to add a course or a section in this course on drone use. And that's really interesting because we are actually working on a brand new drone videography photography course using the Mavic drone. That's the new DJI drone. And so it's just specifically going to be on that camera. But depending on how much demand we have, if we want to convert that or make it more of a general class, we might do that. But it's kind of that new hot thing right now. So we're actually working on that class, and hopefully we'll get that up in the next month or so. Someone asked, how do you take video of your computer screen? I actually just posted a article on Video School Online, and I'm going to link up to that. And I talk about free options for screen recording for Mac and PC users. And there's a tutorial on how to do it there. But basically, I use ScreenFlow for most of my stuff. That's not a free option. But if you have a Mac, you can use QuickTime Player to do screen recordings. Or OBS, Open Broadcast Software, is a screen recording software for both Mac and PCs, and it's free. So cool. Okay, let's just get to a couple more questions that we had on our list. How important is 4K? I'm working on a doc, and there are folks that say no major buyers will purchase regular HD anymore. Would love your thoughts on that.
That's a debate. That's a constant debate for us with each other and with people we work with. So I don't. From a buyer standpoint, though, I haven't really had to deal with selling anything quite yet. But I think just coming from what I would believe is the best quality you can make your video is always going to be the better, because you can always down res. But that being said, you don't always have enough space or equipment to do that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know Netflix has definitely had a huge push towards 4K, and also on YouTube, they've been pushing this whole thing of having 4K and beyond. At the end of the day, what most people will be viewing on isn't going to be 4K. For the mass majority of the world, even if you are putting out at 4K, they won't see it in 4K. That being said, it's always nice to have the option. If you have do the math first. Do you have the hard drive space? Do you have the card space? Do you have a computer that can handle editing 4K footage? because you don't want to go out and promise this thing, and then you get to the back end and you can't deliver because for whatever reason you're not able to actually edit the project, or it's going to slow you down or whatever it is. But that being said, we just shot a project in 6K, and no other reason than maybe in post I want to do some punch-ins, maybe I'll try some different things, and we have that option.
We also have the capacity for it too. Like,
yeah,
we have hard drive with the cameras. We have this.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is that it's so intensive on your computer for editing or for shooting and editing that it's a whole nother beast to be shooting 4K. But I don't want to eat our words later on in a year when everyone is shooting in 4K. And I think eventually that's just how it's going to go, because hopefully they're going to figure out a way to compress higher quality videos even better, so 4K files are smaller. But we're not there yet. In
all honesty, well, I love sports in 4K. I think most other things don't look that great in 4K. And I understand like the whole pitch and sale behind it, but I think it's more important to have a camera that has a dynamic range, is able to handle shadows and highlights of extremes in one shot. I think that's much more important than having a bunch of pixels. And there is a certain clarity and a certain crispness to 4K, and even when you down-res it, it does look that really clean look. But I don't buy it.
I think my final review on it is just that if you're capable of doing it and you can do it, shoot 4K. Always shoot as much high res as you can if you're able to. If you're able to pull it off financially and everything, it's always going to be the best way to go. And if you can't handle that, then just shoot what you can shoot, because it's more important to be making stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. And I'm gonna link up to this video, which I've been following this guy on YouTube. He's got a channel called DSLR Guide, and he really focuses on story and even kind of lighting, but acting. And he just posted this video about why he still won't buy a new camera, and he's using his Canon T3i because at the end of the day, he actually, I don't want to ruin the video because it's pretty good and I don't want to waste time here, but basically he was looking at professional Hollywood setups, and I think he was looking at David Fincher, Gone Girl or something, and he was basically, or whoever, was that David Fincher?
Yeah.
So he was looking at Gone Girl, and then he was saying the budget for the camera for that movie was like 0.5% of the entire budget. But then people on the lower level are spending half their budget on a Sony A7S or whatever, and not worrying about acting, not worrying about story, not worrying about anything else, just because they think the camera is going to take care of everything. So his argument is that you should focus more on the other things. So anyways,
100%.
interesting.
100%. It's easy to get caught up in all the tech world stuff and all the toys and that side of it. But at the end of the day, those are just tools. And Ari, who makes probably the most in-demand camera now, doesn't shoot 4K. Like the max it shoots, I think, is 3.2, and even at that, it's more about what you're doing with that tool than it is, oh well, let's shoot this in 4K, let's shoot this in 6K. There's no that does nothing for your story, for your lighting, for your so many things that are so much more important. And if you're selling to customers that really want 4K, they should be giving you the budget and the team and the the equipment that you're still doing a great story, and the 4K is just another part of it. But
yeah. Cool. Okay, we got a couple of recent questions I'm going to ask. One is from Ozzy. He's asking, in one of the videos, Sam mentions the fact that he has switched camera brands a couple times and went through Canon, Nikon before settling on Sony. I'm interested to understand the factors he considered and the thought process that led to that decision. So maybe you can run through this quickly, because we actually have a video on our VSO Tech channel that talks about this that I'll link up in the chat, but maybe just go through your thoughts.
Yeah.
quickly.
So my father shot Nikon. And I got into photography that way, and so I took my dad's camera. That was my first camera that I had for years and years. I switched to Canon because of the Canon 7D. The Nikon D90 wasn't there with video, and the 7D was sort of the, you know, is the flagship for Canon that really brought this sort of DSLR video world alive. And so I transitioned to that camera. I never bought another Canon. The 7D was the only Canon camera I ever bought. And even at that, I used adapters to keep using my Nikon glass. And then my first major camera purchase was the Sony F5, which is a more cinema. Oh, I did get the D800, right? I went back to Nikon after that. I forgot about that. And that's because I still had all my Nikon glass. I hadn't invested in Canon lenses. And so I was able to keep using the lenses I had and finally do video with my D800. And I was doing a lot of traveling and photography at that point. And then I switched over to Sony for the Pro Cinema camera, and then to match that Pro Cinema camera, and also because of the low light capabilities of the A7S, we got the A7S. Again, you know, just tools, the things that, you know, I did a lot of research, and in that 6-month period, those cameras were the cameras to get. You know, the D800 when it came out was an incredible camera. The Sony F5 when it came out was an incredible camera. A year later, there's 50 other cameras that you could probably pick from. So yeah. I was really just, you know, I have jobs coming up. I need to get something that's going to, you know, enable me to do the work I want to do. And every time the jobs that I got ended up paying off those cameras. So
yeah, and I linked up to the video where you talk about it. I think we talked probably 15 minutes on this whole thing. That video. So people can look at that if you want. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, like they were kind of the new cameras at the time, and they also had features that really helped. And I'll just say, like with the A7S, the low light, the size to be able to put that on your Steadicam systems, shoot events, that is what you wanted it for, and that's why it's good. But and you might not have gotten such high quality with your D800 or your Canon 7D if you had just kept that. But yes, at the end of the day, just tools. So I want to move on to some other questions. We're going to get to the live chat. I'm going to answer a bunch of those questions in just a second. I just want to finish up with this one from the forum. It was also from Ozzy, and he's asking about, he has some old Minolta MD prime lenses that he uses for black and white photography. He would love to use them for video work, and he's wondering if there's a converter for that. It sounds like, I don't know if he's using a Sony camera or not, and he knows that autofocus won't work, but is that a good idea to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think using any vintage or older lens is great. I think it gives more of a look, in those Minoltas especially. I haven't personally shot with them, but I know the brand, and I know that they're a lot of people like them. I think for video especially too, you should be doing manual focus anyways. So that's never an issue in my mind. But yeah, depending on what camera you're going to, I'm sure that there's so many adapters out there. I'm not sure specifically if there is for that type of Minolta to whatever camera, but assuming you're going to Canon or Sony, you should be good. I'm not so sure about going to Nikon. Sometimes
Nikon's a little harder.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a little bit tougher.
There's probably definitely, I don't know, I've never really used Minolta glass before, but I already found a Minolta MD MC lens to Canon EOS adapter. So I mean, just a quick Google will find you that stuff. But then always, obviously, like look up reviews and stuff. He's right though, we'll kill any autofocus if they're that old. But they'll look good. Like I think any old glass has character. Like I think that's what you get. It's probably going to be a little less sharp than newer glass, but you know, it'll be a look, which would be cool.
And a lot of people talk about sharpness, and I think everyone thinks that if it's sharp, that's like the best thing. Having a little softness is a very good thing. It adds texture to your subjects. It, you know, makes pores and like details of people's faces look nicer.
It depends on your style.
It does depend on your style, but like I think everyone's shooting with this, you know, brand new glass that is extremely sharp, and there's something lost. You know, there's something beautiful about old glass that, you know, has imperfections. I think that, you know, there's a beauty to that type of stuff. So, and also if you own the glass, just get the converter. Don't go buy new lenses. It's worth just using what you got. And an adapter is going to cost you only, it'll cost a couple $100. So.
Cool. Awesome. All right, let's get to some questions that we've been getting in the chat. I had a couple from Imran about screen recording. I answered that already with that link about screen recording software. We got another question from Mohammed about wanting to start motion graphics and don't know how to begin. Well, I would say the best tool for motion graphics is using After Effects, and I've got a bunch of tutorials on the YouTube channel. If you go to videoschoolonline.com and go to the courses, there are a bunch of courses, but one main course for After Effects, and there's some free courses to get started too. So After Effects is where it's at with that. Fed4561 asked, he's on a low budget and he shot natural light, video quality came out good, recorded audio separately, and he's having trouble syncing audio, and he wants suggestions, or she. I would say from the post side of things, there's tools that help. It really depends on your software. I mean, I edit with Adobe Premiere Pro. Within Adobe Premiere Pro, you can sync a video and an audio clip automatically within Premiere Pro. There's also tools like Pluralize that you can download, but it does cost, where you can actually import all your video and audio, and it basically does it automatically. In terms of the production side, having a clapper or just clapping at the start of the take so that you can match up the waveforms. And I feel like people, I'm just going to explain why that works. I don't know if this is like dumb to explain why we do that, but you clap so that, one, you could see the clap on the camera, but also on the audio from the external recording device, also on the audio of the internal camera on the video camera, you see the waveforms in your video editor. So you can actually literally see a spike in your timeline, and then you just, use that to sync up your audio and video. So those are the tips I would use. Are there any other things that you guys can think of?
No, the most important thing really is, and I don't think it's dumb at all. I think a lot of people actually don't know why you see clappers on sets, and it's really important. Every time you stop recording with your video camera, stop recording with your audio. When you restart, each time you need the camera to see the person on screen do a clap, and you need to make sure your audio recorder hears that. And even at that, labeling what each take is and saying out loud, take 1, scene 1A, clap. That way, if you're listening through all the tracks, you know which one it's supposed to match with. Even at that, that's why you hold a sign up that has that information written, so that both video and audio can, you can see it and hear it. But really, the best thing to do is do that correctly in production. There's a lot of post-production fixes, but they cost money, or they take a lot more time. And if you just do that religiously every single time, it's really gonna save you time in post-production.
Yeah, I mean, and you definitely, most cameras record internal audio, so you definitely want to have that. I could see it being a lot more difficult if for some reason your internal microphone didn't record, or it doesn't record audio, because then you're basically
like film.
Yeah, like film. I don't know if there's any digital cameras that do that, that don't record audio, but I can see that being an issue for someone. But yeah, I mean, I think the clap is kind of the basic thing that we would recommend doing. And if you do need help with another editor, you could, message us, or just search on YouTube for syncing audio in Sony Vegas or iMovie, because there might be some other tutorials out there that showed specifically that, or we can make one. We got a couple of questions about cloning, and this is really interesting, about having a video with clones. So from a filming perspective, I'm the easiest way to do this is if you have a steady shot, if you have a stable shot and you shoot 2 takes with the person, the clone, in 2 different areas of the shot. And then when you come into post-production, you can just crop or create a mask from one clip and then layer it on top of the other clip, and it should be pretty seamless. If your camera is moving, that's even harder. If you want the clones to interact and cross that kind of cut or that mask, then you have to do some more advanced effects. In After Effects, what I would use is the Roto Brush tool, which allows you to basically cut out anything within your video that's moving, and you can like basically cut out someone moving and place that on top of another clip. But in terms of recording, is this something that you guys have done or have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I've played with it back in a long time ago, but
Yeah.
no, and it's it's beyond a steady shot. You need a tripod locked off, not moving, between takes doesn't move, so it's it's really the exact same frame, and then yeah, you can move as many times as you want. The clever way to play with it is to kind of know how you're going to have the different people come in. So instead of just cutting it down the middle and have one person on this side, one person on this side, if you have someone just in this bottom corner, you could then have them come up over here and then cut it here and then cut it again here and then have them over here again. So it's just so that you never, cross over that plane and where you're going to be cutting it.
Yeah.
And I've seen people do that really well without getting into crazy After Effects and rotoscoping and all that. A lot of these movies, people spend months just tracking, sort of cutting out each finger and cutting out each hair and, making it really seamless, because if you do it sort of sketchily, it can look kind of, low quality. But, it's a great way to learn rotoscoping, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes it to a completely different level. I got a quick chat from Cecil saying that they're not seeing the stream. Can someone please chat and just confirm that you guys are seeing the stream? But it's a completely different level if you are layering clones or if you have a moving camera, which it's obviously possible to do, but it's not. It takes it to a whole different level. So Akash is saying, I'm using Filmora, so please guide me according to this editor for cloning in After Effects. So I think with Filmora, or really any editor, there should be some sort of crop or masking effect that you can actually apply to a clip and basically cut it. So hopefully that makes sense. Like if you can film something and you can have the person on the left side of the screen and then film it again and have the person on the right side of the screen, you could just layer those 2 clips on top of each other. And then on the top clip, you can just cut off, mask, or crop the side of the clip that doesn't have the person so that there's the 2 people there. So I need to just create a tutorial on this. So I'll do that. It looks like people can still see us. So hopefully, Cecil, you were able to get the stream again. We have a question from Miguel Garza about, how do I start a family business with drone? I'm an intermediate video editor and my sister is a licensed pilot. What market would I go after real estate? What market would I go after real estate? I'm wondering, Miguel, are you asking what market would you go in addition to real estate, or how would you go after the real estate market? Do you guys have any, like, just in general for starting a video production business, you guys have done that successfully. So what tips do you have?
Well, I mean, is he wondering a video business with a drone or just in general?
Sounds like with a drone.
Yeah, I mean, the drone stuff's tricky because you do technically need to have a license to be doing it commercially. So if you were going to start a business, I would really look into the regulation and rules of wherever you are in the country or the world.
Oh, I lost Will. Will, can you hear me? Do you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, just making video of stuff that you want to be doing and start cutting that together and start finding people that need that video and show them what you're capable of doing. You just start to try and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think putting together a portfolio is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Trying to reach out to businesses in your area, even offering to do it for free for some friends or anything like that. I mean, that's how we started the wedding videography business that I was running for a while, just offering to do it for friends and build up that portfolio, build up that word of mouth. I think if you're starting a business which is localized, which is what, you know, drone videography is going to be, word of mouth is going to be your biggest driver of customers. So you just need to start building a reputation in your area. We got a question about the Blackmagic Pocket camera.
Oh, baby.
Any thoughts about that?
I've shot with it a few times. Have you?
Once.
I don't know how to put this.
It's a tool. It's a camera. It can look good.
I do not like that camera. Just straight up. I don't like any of the Blackmagic cameras though, and that's just me personally. I have seen some friends who have actually the guys we share the stage and office with. They have a Blackmagic Pocket, and they've used it on a bunch of interviews for ESPN. And it looked great. Like they did a really good job with it. They locked it down. They put I think they put a 24-70 on it. And they were able to run it through post and do it well. I think it took a little bit of work. And I think that camera really excels in its cost price. And if you can lock it off, it's so small that like it will see every little shake. Like it's basically an extension of your hand. And that's not always like a good thing when you're shooting video. But that being said, for the price, the look, the raw image that it comes out with is pretty solid. It's very limited in its shakiness. The batteries go so fast. The menus are rough. Like there's not a lot of customability. Customization. I don't know. If you're gonna go that small, I would look into an A7S too. I think that's just as capable and can do more.
Or GH4.
Or GH4, the new GH5.
Yeah. That camera was fairly outdated at this point, and even when it came out, it had a lot of I don't want to say downfalls, but just little kinks with it. Again, though, it's a tool. If you found a great deal with it and
yeah, because there's some great videos with that camera.
Yeah, amazing videos. It's some good stuff. You just have to learn how to work with it.
I've also seen amazing videos made from an iPhone. So it's what is your story? How are you telling your story? How are you trying to use this tool? And are you going to have the time to really set up every single shot and make it?
That also being said, if you've invested in like a Versa or a Blackmagic or any of the bigger cinema Blackmagic cameras, like it would make sense, it would behoove you to probably get a Pocket as like your B camera because they'll have the same color space too. So if you're starting to enter into the Blackmagic ecosystem, it's a solid little camera. I personally am just not a fan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've never used it, but I think that kind of sums it up. So cool. All right, I got a couple kind of more beginner questions from our forum.
Love those.
One person is still confused about resolution options available, whether it's their GoPro or iPhone 7. There's many options: 4K, 2.7, 1080p. We kind of talked about 4K before, but they're asking, do we have any sort of mental algorithm that helps understand this better and when to use them?
Always shoot 1080 and up. I think shooting 720 at this point is going to hurt you. Typically, like with a GoPro and those different things, 1080 enables you to shoot higher frame rates, so you can get that cool slow motion look. Whereas 4K on many of them are going to be 2398 or 30 frames per second, so real time. So at that point, the main reason would be to get that slow motion effect. Also, with the 4K, some people like to be able to punch in and sort of get rid of that fisheye effect. So having a little extra resolution, or 2.7K for that fact, enables you to get rid of that fisheye look. But really, at the end of the day, it's what is your post flow? How long is your project going to be? Is it going to kill your hard drive space if you are shooting 4K? And there's a lot of, you can Google just calculators of time, hours shot to and type of resolution and type of codec, and figure out how much hard drive space it's going to ultimately take up. But at the end of the day, it's what is your project? What are you trying to do with it? Are you trying to get slow motion?
Yeah. I know for a lot of people in the class, they might be doing tutorials. They might have their own YouTube video channel. They might even be online course creators. And I've gotten a few questions lately about having a second camera, or having a camera like they're doing cooking classes or art classes. And I think shooting in a higher resolution to allow you to punch in is a really good idea for those kinds of things, because you can put it overhead, have your nice cooking shot, your nice art shots, but then be able to punch in without losing quality, without losing resolution. So,
Absolutely.
so we talked kind of about 4K before in that sense. But yeah.
I will say at that point, just something to keep in mind. If you go shoot 4K, but you're using it so that you can punch into the shot, when you export 1080.
Yeah.
Even though you're editing 4K clips, by punching in, you're going to lose resolution if you export as a 4K file. So punch in, you can go 200%. So 1920 by 1080 to 4K. There's you have twice as many pixels, and so you can effectively punch in 200%, but then just export at 1080. Because that's going to be what once you punch in, that's going to be your max resolution, more or less.
Yep. Cool. Another cool question. When I shoot with a zoom lens and I go to the longer focal length, I find my light diminishes because my lens is a 3.5 to f5.6 while I'm shooting. How do I overcome this?
WTF.
That's the lens you have, and the reason that more pro lenses cost so much more money. A lot of the times, it's the glass quality, but it's also that there'll be f2.8 all the way through. So even as you zoom in, you're not having to change that. To overcome it, though, just before you start shooting, when you zoom in, check how the light is, set your ISO to that. And then when you zoom out, you just have to readjust.
Yeah, when I shoot with, and typically like a lot of kit lenses are that f-stop range on that zoom, is just you're just aperture priority and stick to whatever that last is, whatever the aperture is when you zoom out. So if it's a 3.5 or a 4, just stay at a 3.5 or 4, and then up your ISO, like Sam was saying, or change another variable and just stick at that, because then you won't have to worry when you're zooming in and zooming out. That's the best.
Well, no, you'd want to shoot at 5.6.
Well, whatever the furthest,
the slowest
f-stop is on that particular lens, 5.64. I don't remember.
Yeah. That's something that I ran into all the time with my first kit lenses. So there's not really a solution to the f-stop, but using the other settings, and I think that's a great idea.
If you are going to be zooming in and out during your shot, shoot at, for that lens of 3.5 to 5.6, shoot at a 5.6. Set or an f8 or an f11, like whatever it is above that. But if you start zooming out and it's all of a sudden you're getting twice as much or one stop more light, it's going to look weird in your shot. So just leave it at 5.6. That way you can zoom in and out, and it's not going to change your exposure.
Yeah, cool. So kind of not a similar question. This person shoots videos indoors, and they sometimes get flicker in the playback, which I think may be caused by indoor lights interfering with the frequency. How do I avoid this? Great question.
That is absolutely your indoor lights. Either you have fluorescence or even some incandescent lights will do that. That's going to be your shutter speed. So what you'll need to do is just run some tests, more or less. Ideally, get rid of those
Lights.
Get rid of those lights, turn them off, and try and use lights that don't flicker. So most incandescent bulbs won't.
Yeah, most of them, but all the new like energy saving bulbs, they will all do that.
Yeah.
They will all do that.
Yeah.
And it also depends on first check the bulb, right? If it's one of those, it'll do it. Then it's your frame rate. If you're shooting whatever, 2398, 30 frames, 60, and then it's your shutter and stuff. So like that's the way you kind of work your way.
Yeah.
Typically,
so I mean, people though are probably going to be getting into this situation where they're shooting a wedding, they're shooting an event, they've got it's set at 2398 frame rate. So really the only thing they can do is their shutter, which they have to play around with to see. I mean, they should be able to see it on the screen while they're recording, right?
Yeah. And typically, if your shutter is set to 1/50th, the best way to sort of like check if you're in an event situation, always try and look at the location before the big event's actually happening. But go up to the light and really like have your image filled by this light source, and then go from 1/50th to 1/60th to 1/80th. You'll see the change in it, and some will be far worse. But typically between 150 and 160 even, you should be able to make it look a little better. At the same time, you're just gonna have to bite the bullet sometimes. But if you're shooting indoors and this is something you're doing consistently, try and get rid of those, try and turn off those lights that are flickering. Try and get a light that's gonna be more consistent, incandescent bulb, for example. And yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on which country you're in, because here being 50 hertz, being at 1/50th shutter, you should be okay. But it varies on where you are and what bulbs you're using.
And if you're gonna test it, really test it, shoot it, put it in your computer, look at it. Don't look at it on the back of the camera, because there are some cameras that shall not be named that are really tiny and small, and you can't see on the back of the screen like the bucket.
Yeah.
All right, and also, if you're shooting slow motion, more than likely, it's just gonna happen. When you shoot those higher frame rates, it's pretty hard to avoid that unless you have, the proper lights. So
yeah, cool. There's a question from Victor asking about wanting to autoplay videos on their WordPress website. Basically, now with the trends in Facebook Instant Video, the videos autoplay, and it's a make or break issue. How can we get the videos to instantly play on a WordPress website? Well, first, I would say that autoplaying a video is not a make or break issue, especially on a website. I think people actually get annoyed a lot if a video auto plays, because people aren't used to that. People are used to it on Facebook now, but most other websites aren't going to have autoplay videos. So I would actually say stay away from an autoplay video unless it's like for a very specific purpose. But that being said, you can autoplay your videos if you upload them with YouTube. So he was asking if you could do this automatically once you upload to Facebook, but also have it on YouTube or on your WordPress site. I would recommend uploading to Facebook, but also to YouTube anyways, to start building your brand and your video presence on both platforms. And then if you search for autoplay YouTube in Google, the first result is a step-by-step instruction from Google on how to add the autoplay code to your embed code when you put your videos on your WordPress website. So that's how you do it. And it's pretty easy. I actually do it on a couple of my videos on my website, but it's something like, I'll just give it an example. Like, you wouldn't want to do this on the homepage of your website, because if someone's going to your website multiple times, like, they're not going to want to have a video autoplay every single time they visit your website. So only put it on a page where it's like something special, where someone's going to see it like maybe once and not be returning to that page again. So anyways, those are my thoughts about autoplay. We had a question. Peter Firm asks about, he wants us to say something about how to start color grading our material.
Yeah, it's all Sam.
Sam.
Sam does a lot of the color grading, but we use a bunch of different processes. So
yeah, I think at an entry level, you know, it kind of depends on what video software you're editing with. But for basic color correction, and if you're shooting, you know, some sort of cine style or this very flat style that a lot of cameras are shooting nowadays to get sort of the most out of the image, the first things to start with are your contrast and your saturation. Those are the things that you don't have, and that's what makes it so flat. From there, you know, if you're able to set a black point, a white point, you know, that's just saying if you have really, you know, hot highlights and you have shadows, you sort of want, you know, bring those down and like just add that sort of contrast. At the same time, maybe you want more, you know, less contrasty look. You know, that sort of look that's really style. You know, it's a style nowadays is that low contrast look. And so, still setting a black point, but maybe bringing down the contrast, getting the highlights to look good. You really just have to play with these different things. And don't get overwhelmed by all these terms. The main thing is setting your contrast, bringing in some saturation, and typically with the really flat looking things, you either need to bring up the highlights or you need to bring down the shadows, just to add some depth to the image. From there, you know, you're able to play with tint or your white balance. Maybe you want to look a little bluish or a little oranger. You know, you can play with those things. And then the hardest part, obviously, is matching that throughout your entire video and trying to have a consistent look. Or maybe, you know, maybe you want to just go all over the place with it. But yeah, color correction, you know, it's a really fun thing to do. In terms of the process, it's the last thing you do alongside sound doing. Like, edit your project first. Get your project to be the edit that you want it to be, that you're really happy with, and then start coloring. Coloring is going to slow down your computer. It's going to make your editing process a lot slower. So you want to do that last. And yeah, it's also, you know, depending on what computer screens you're going to be looking at, it's always going to look a little bit different at the end of the day. But
what programs do you use?
Yeah, and I think something that will affect your video a lot, though, and this was a question that was from our forum, so I don't know if it was the same person asking this, but they basically followed up and said that their videos have a flat amateur look. Yeah, it was from Peter again, so thanks, Peter. I think, you know, without having a camera that shoots at a really nice dynamic range, if you're shooting with like an inexpensive DSLR, you're just not going to have that much room to color correct to make it look like other cameras. Like if you compare, like I was watching Chef's Table on Netflix, which is a beautiful documentary series now. And I was just like, how do I get my stuff to look like that? And there's just no way I'm ever going to get my Canon 7D to look like that, or 70D. And so while we're talking about tools being just tools, there are some things with your camera that it's just going to look different. Like I can't make my 70D look like Chef's Table just because it doesn't have that dynamic range.
Yeah, I mean, if you had the proper lighting, you could get it to look pretty good.
Well, that's other things. Lighting comes into like the looks. People might want to try to make it look professional with color grading, but it's has to do with all kinds of other things with the lighting too.
Right. I mean, no matter the camera that you're using, I mean, how you light it's the most important factor. What the lighting situation is when you're filming. The one qualm I have with Canon is that everyone shoots in sort of this standard look that they have, and it's this very specific saturated contrasty look. And so if you're shooting that, it's going to be very difficult to color grade your image other than adding, you know, sort of filters and changing the color hue and all this type of stuff. So if you are looking to start color grading, just make sure you're shooting in a very, you know, in a cine profile that has less contrast, less saturation, that enables you to, you know, sort of set these different, you know, black points and white points and
too. I think on the GoPros it's called like the GoPro Cinelog or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Cool. There's a question asking, when I shoot a panorama at 24 frames per second, and then I speed it up, say 1.5 times in Premiere Pro, the resulting clip plays back jerky from start to finish. How can I avoid this?
Panorama?
Panorama. Yeah, I don't really know what you mean by panorama, but
Panning across stuff. In video, it would just be like panning.
yeah, well, okay, so there's a few things going on. One, it could just be jerky, meaning the playback is jerky because your computer isn't processing the sped up clip fast enough. So you might just have to render out your clip and play it back, or try exporting it and see if it has that same jerky look. Also, if you're moving your camera or if it's handheld and you're speeding up, you're just going to see all those jerks even more. So that's could be the other thing. You shouldn't see like, and you're saying speed up, so you obviously mean you're speeding up. If you slow down 24 frames per second footage, it's going to look jerky because it's going to stop and jerk because you're slowing down that footage. But if we didn't answer your question, maybe clarify it.
Yeah, and also some cameras, as you're panning, sometimes they just don't look very good as you move the camera across. But if he's speeding it up, I'm not sure if this is on like a timer type system or,
yeah.
Maybe
I don't know. We need more clarification. Whoever asked that. So there's a question from David in the chat. Thank you guys for being here still. We're going to go for another 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. It's been almost an hour, and hopefully we've gotten to most of your questions. If you have any more, please chat them. But David was asking about best way to sync up multi-camera footage while maintaining the sound sync. So we talked about syncing before, but it is a little bit different if you definitely have multi-camera footage. And it also depends on what editor you're using. So maybe you can, David, can you tell us what video editor you're using? Because with Premiere Pro, you can create a multicam sequence, and I'll just create a link. Multicam syncing process. This walks through the actual process of syncing footage or starting a multicam sequence, and you can automatically sync multiple cameras based off of the waveforms. But like we said before, Pluralize is another tool you can use with Premiere Pro, with Final Cut, with other video editors. So yeah, so that's that. Let's see, questions. Okay. We got a question from Himanshu on the forum. What is the economical way of arranging lights for a shoot? As per my setup, direct sunlight will be coming from the back of my head, which in turn will affect the subject as it will become dark. So I'm planning to shoot in the night or early morning. So maybe talk about backlighting with the sun. We actually have a lesson in the course on natural light where we kind of talked about that, but any other things to keep in mind?
Is it backlighting him or the subject? Is that what he said?
I think he is the subject.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's philosophically deep.
But having to battle the sun is always tricky because you're not going to win most of the time. And so if you can angle it at all just so the sun comes at least a little bit from the side, that can make a big difference. Additionally, using any sort of bounce, like a big white piece of cardboard even, and having that reflect the sunlight can help sort of fill you in. If you don't have lights, or even if you have lights, like having that additionally can help. But really, yeah, I mean, either shooting at night or just trying to turn, position your frame a little bit to the side so that maybe the sun's not directly behind you, but hitting side of your face, and then all you have to do is bring in some light to the side that's in the shadow at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to pick the battle you're gonna want to fight. Like either work and fight the sun and like figure out how to like do that dance and then be like kind of timed, right? Because the sun's moving and the clouds are going in and out. Or you shoot at night and you figure out how to get power out there, get enough lights to make it look natural and good. And that's a whole nother game that you have to play. So it's kind of like what are your tools and what can you like decide the battle you want to do.
Yeah. And if you're shooting a 5-minute clip, then you're fine. But if you're trying to shoot for the entire day, you know, is your window facing east or west? Because that's going to drastically change. If you're facing south, it'll change less. But you know, depending on where you are, there's a lot of variables there. So if you're trying to shoot something longer, I would shoot at night. Personally, you're going to have more consistent lighting. But if it's quick clips or just short little things, shooting with the sunlight will be fine. Just make sure you're checking your camera every so often to make sure, you know, the sun is moving and that your settings are still correct.
Yeah. Cool. He also had another question about writing shots, I think coming up with like a shot list. And his example was shooting a lady preparing a dish and then the table on which the dish is going to be prepared. Do you have any ideas for like, you know, types of shots, or how do you come up with shots for a simple shoot like that?
I think set the scene, set the stage. So some sort of wide shot, show where we are, what is the space that we're in. Even, you know, what city are we in? What house are we in? What, you know, just setting that scene, setting where the woman is, and then getting into the details, both in a medium shot and then also more detailed as to what is she cooking. If you just get wide shot in the beginning, like, you know, this is why having 2 cameras is nice, because as she goes through movements, you can cut between a closer shot and a wider shot. But just sort of think of what you want to show, I guess. What are the actions? Having someone run through all the actions in the wide shot first enables you to then have that as your safety net. And then you go in and get your detailed shots throughout. If she's only going to do it one time through, though, you just need to, you know, get a couple wide shots throughout the process and then move into your closer shots while she's preparing the dishes and setting the table and all that type of stuff. And then
I think a lot of this comes with practice too. Like once you shoot a couple things, you're gonna, and then especially once you edit your things yourself, you'll realize like, oh shoot, I need this type of shot, or this shot would be great to cut to right here. So it might take a while to like have that mindset, knowing like, okay, I need that wide shot. I need the shot of her, you know, doing the dish. I need the transition shot of her coming to the table or whatever. So some of it's just going to come with practice.
It's important to know what your 5 essential shots are. What are the 5 things, or however many, but like, you know, typically there's like 5 key things you have to show.
Yeah.
And just make sure you get those, and you get those how you want to get them. And then, from there, it's,
and if it's like a big shoot, like I would suggest, like, and I've done this tons of times on tons of different projects, is like practice beforehand, whether it be the subject or just one of your friends or something, and shoot it with your iPhone or whatever camera, but just so you get the compositions right. And then you can bring that into your editing and just make like a rough, like basically animatic or like rough draft of like really rehearsal type shots. And then you'd be like, oh, should have got that. I need to do that more. And like, then you'll know for the day when you go shoot. And it's a much easier process.
Yeah, I love that idea. And most people have a phone or a camera in their pocket. So go do it. So cool. I'm going to wrap up. I mean, we've been going for an hour. I think we had a really good show. Office hours, we've had a bunch of people pop in. I think we got to most people's questions. There were a couple just at the end that I'll answer about our courses. So one is about having plans to make an advanced After Effects tutorial in the future, like with effects, like more Hollywood style effects. I really like that idea. There's so many ideas out there for courses, and we try to base our course productions off of what courses can help the most people out. So we'd have to look and see if there's enough demand for that kind of topic, which there probably is. So that's a really great idea. And at the end of the day, though, my personal goal is to have courses on every single topic related to video production that you would ever want. And that means bringing in some experts that, you know, perhaps like we're not good enough to teach that kind of class, but I would love to get someone who is, to teach those courses for you. So if you have any ideas, please send us messages, and we'll add them to our long, never-ending to-do list. Right now, we're working on the drone videography and photography course. That's the next one. David asked about the complete video production bootcamp. Is that the latest one that's on Udemy? Yes, that's the course that we just launched in December. It's all brand new, up to date. It's complete beginner course. That's where most people on this call are coming from. People might have like found this video if they were just browsing my YouTube channel for some reason, and saw that we were live. But this is one of the bonuses that we give to students, and hopefully students really appreciate it. Hopefully people are getting value from these office hours. I don't think many other Udemy instructors are doing office hours like this. So we really, hope that you appreciate the extra time that we're putting in, and that, results in some better reviews of the course, some 5-star reviews. We'd really like that, because, we really care about helping you learn. And with the courses, we've realized we can't answer every single question in the course videos. So that's why we're doing these bonus things like office hours, where we can take your more specific questions and spend more time with them. Things where like other students might not be as interested in, and we don't want to include it in the course content, but in a situation like this. Anyways, we hope that it's really helped. And we have Homestead Dad commenting, a lot of the stuff is over my head right now, but really appreciates it. And we realize that for some of these specific questions, it might be a little advanced, but hopefully with the course, and if you go through that basic course, you can then move on to the cinematography course or some of the editing courses, and all of this will start to make more sense. So
start writing down questions as you take it, and next office hours, we'll see you back.
Yeah, cool. So what do you guys got planned for the next month until we come back for office hours in about a month?
We're actually doing a bunch of like really cool like videos for local artists and Instagrammer type people. Like we're doing like a stylist, we're doing a wedding photographer, we're doing something else. Oh, we're doing a therapist who does bully prevention. So we're kind of like doing smaller video projects for them, and then I don't know, we got a feature on the works potentially. Should be cool.
Nice, cool.
So other cool stuff.
Well, it seems like Sam and Will are always up to something, so I'm sure by the next time we'll see another video pop out or two. So cool, guys. Well, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for watching. And as always, if you have any questions between now and next time, you can submit them on the forum that's in the course, or just submit them on the Q&A tab on the course in Udemy. So cool. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye. Be productive. Teach the world. Love you guys.